Welcome back. I'm in the studio with the SIU head advocate, Mothibi, and we are discussing the work of the SIU. And he's got his own issues, by the way. It's not only members of the public who are complaining. I noticed that you too are complaining because you said recently that there are more than 600 cases. To be exact, it's what, 686?
Reportedly 686.
600, and you were complaining about the NPA, your colleagues in the anti-corruption fight. What is the issue then that you're you're complaining about?
Right, Ratib, let's put context to that.
Please.
We were not complaining. What happened is that as part of our new strategy, right, our new strategy places premium on the impact that SIU work does. So as we were implementing, we are busy in the execution phase of our strategy. And our strategy requires us, amongst others, to follow up on all the matters that we have referred, be it disciplinary or prosecution. The one area which we really have control over is the civil litigation, which we'll chat about later on. So as part of communicating our strategy or implementing our strategy, amongst others, we had to speak to the stakeholders' consent. One of the stakeholders, yes, on this outcome of criminal prosecution referral is the NPA. So we engaged with the NPA. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the view that we have to work together and ensure that the matters that we refer to them are followed up.
But so what is the oldest case that you refer to the NPA that has not been followed up on by the NPA or has not been prosecuted?
Most of the matters, Ratim, date back to about 2013. So it's quite a number of...
So it would be, let's say, 4 to 5 years.
Thereabout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all we are saying is that we need to see those matters being actioned in terms of how we have referred them for prosecution. So the point I was making is, as we communicated this new strategy of SIU, which intends on ensuring that matters are followed up and action is taken, we communicated it out there to the public, and yes, indeed, the media picked up on this communication. And these matters, by the way, are included in our annual reports, in terms of how many cases have been referred to NPA. So it wasn't a new information at that stage.
You've got 686 cases outstanding. How many have been successfully prosecuted by the NPA that you referred to them and have been successfully prosecuted during the same period? In other words, from 2013, 2014 to now.
But we do not have records of how many have been successfully prosecuted, and hence the follow-up.
Have been actioned, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, there's been some action in some of the matters. Recently, there's a case that we referred out of our SABC investigation. That matter was referred to the Commercial Crimes Court, and the accused appeared, and the accused has been charged. So that case is underway.
Yeah.
So that is what we want to see. We would like to have all of those matters that have been referred, been assessed, and if there are gaps or, remember the NPA, they are the owners, so to speak, of criminal prosecution in the country.
Yeah.
They make decisions whether to prosecute or not to prosecute.
Now, and here's one case.
Yes.
Which I think is high profile and the SIU was involved in, the Nkandla matter. You investigated that, didn't you?
We did.
Yeah, and what happened to it?
In the Nkandla matter, there were disciplinary matters that were referred.
Yeah.
And those matters, as I said, disciplinary evidence, matters on disciplinary cases, gets referred to the accounting authorities because it's their responsibility and accountability to take disciplinary steps. Those matters were referred to the Department of Public Works to make sure that they take action. You probably have read that those disciplinary proceedings were underway. I do not have the details of the outcomes of all of those, but we were satisfied that action was taken in that regard. There was also a civil litigation that came out of that matter. That has been widely reported up to now. The architect who was responsible we have since instituted civil litigation to recover some of the monies that would have been lost. And that matter, I'm happy to report that ultimately we've got a court case, court date, which is next year, June.
And you mentioned civil litigation earlier on. I mean, how successful have you been in recovering public monies from the wrongdoing or whatever regular expenditures that are taking place within the departments of government?
Right. If you look at our annual report, this past financial year and the financial year before, there's numbers that we indicate. But just to indicate that when we find that, let's say we investigate irregularities in the procurement space, and we make a finding that this contract was awarded irregularly, what do? We then take the matter. That's the area which we have control on end to end. We then take the matter on ourselves. In terms of our legislation, we institute in terms of our name on behalf of the state institutions. We then institute civil litigation. So what we do, we ask the court to set the irregular contract aside, and the next step is to then ask for the court to order just and equitable orders and make sure that the monies that have been lost are equitably restored to government.
You have succeeded in a few of those cases, or it never works?
In last financial year, you would see we are reporting that we've set aside irregular agreements worth to an amount of about 4 billion. And that's a substantive, that's a very significant number. If you look at the last financial year, we appeared in Parliament a few days ago. In the last financial year, the irregular agreements that have been set aside are worth an amount of about 3 billion. So I suppose that's where I was indicating that we need to really drive hard in terms of this awareness to the public, so that the good work of Special Investigating Unit is known. Because there's quite big numbers that we have recovered.
Well, unfortunately, we're talking about negative stories, and I'm going to say to you that there's room for growth for SIU, right? It's commendable that you've been able to save the state 3 to 4 billion rands over the 2 successive years that you mentioned. But your colleague, the Auditor General, from his own investigation says 75 billion rands has been lost due to corruption and wasteful expenditure and other irregularities.
Right.
So when one looks at that and says, well, there's still a long way to go, because you must make Kimi Makwetu's life a lot easier. You see, you started at 4, but there's 70 billion rands to go.
Right, I agree. And by the way, I just referenced the past 2 financial years. There's some numbers that have been recovered in the previous financial years. But what we are doing, and we do recognize, remember the Auditor General focuses, amongst others, around irregular expenditure.
Yes.
And irregular expenditure in terms of Public Finance Management Act really says the state institution concerned has not followed process in terms of procuring whatever they were procuring.
Not that necessarily the money has been stolen or anything of that sort. But let me talk about the things that do affect people.
Right.
The Gyani water project is an example of that. Apparently the project started at a much lower amount. Somebody mentioned 40 million, is it? And it increased to around 500 million. Now they're talking about 3 billion rands disappearing, and still no water is being piped to the residents of the Gyani area. What is happening there, and how did that department lose so much money with the SIU around?
Tim, that question is very much timely. That investigation is one of the investigations that we had said in SIU that it's got to be one of those that we turn around quickly in terms of our new strategy. It started off the proclamation was issued in 2016. The investigation has since been completed. We are now wrapping up the report, which will be submitted to the President by the end of this month, which is next week.
Are there likely to be prosecutions from your recommendations?
Just high level. Obviously, we can't go into details. We have uncovered. We've uncovered irregularities. We've uncovered that the contract that was awarded to some service provider was awarded irregularly. And you probably have read that it was reported that we are instituting civil litigation against that service provider. And the amount of the civil litigation would range in the region of more than 2 billion. So we have found various number of irregularities ranging from poor project management, poor governance processes, management overrides, ignorance of professional advice. So that's just high-level matters that we have uncovered, but the details will sit in the report that is submitted to the President next week. We have referred matters for disciplinary process. Some of the senior officials in the Department of Water Affairs, based on the referrals that we have made, one of the DDGs was dismissed last week based on what we have found. So we are saying to the public that we are serious about ensuring that action is taken. There are still other matters that we are referring. This Gyani is under the Department of Water Affairs, yes, but there's also an agency that's involved, which is Lepelle Northern Water. Yeah. We have been engaging with them. So all of those officials who are guilty, we will pursue them.
And there are other cases as well. It's just that this one has been profiled in the media. Thank you very much, Advocate Andy Mothibi, for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
And if you want to read more about the SIU annual report, go to siu.gov.za. There's more detail there. We just wanted to make sure that we'll all understand what the SIU is all about. South Africa is referred to as one big crime scene, but yet we have so many agencies. We were wondering what's happening with them. Do they need more teeth to bite or not? That's all we had for you this evening, and thank you for joining the Modise Network. Join us again next Saturday at 6 p.m. From us, good night to you.